We are back. Colt Dog. Emma, what are your thoughts on the Knicks choking last night? I
Mm.
mean, it's like dark days in my household.
Can I just say, like, they didn't choke. In the period that they were up, they scored like 12 points. The Pacers just scored like 20.
Well, Neesmith like hit
He
like
made
five
8 for 9
threes.
on threes, including like, yeah, 5 in a row. That was just that was like the class. That was a perfect example of a team winning a game and not a team losing it, in my opinion. Like, sure, like three guys should, Anunoby, Towns, and Brunson should have made a free throw, made
Right.
both free throws instead of, but you can't count on Neesmith to make that many threes in a row.
Yeah, I mean, they should have adjusted defensively, and Thibodeau probably should have taken the timeout. But yeah, they were just and OG Anunoby had some uncharacteristic defensive lapses at the end of the game too. So I don't want to talk about it, to be honest with you. It was pretty devastating last night.
Hey, they
Jules,
had me
Emma,
watching. I never watch it. They had me watching.
yeah. Jules says, Emma, will we get to see your wedding dress eventually? Probably not. Probably not. I mean, maybe
Emma, will you
we'll.
provide a live stream of the night of your honeymoon, please? Will you please? I mean, such
Probably
bizarre.
not. I'm pretty private with this stuff. Although, unless like we all take a photo together, because some of these guys are going to be there. So
Will you be live streaming Throw in the Garter?
I, I can't you can't give people too much with parasocial stuff, or they'll take a mile.
Probably gotta give less.
Yeah,
I mean,
I
maybe
know.
not you, but me, maybe.
Well, it's such a struggle because I'm a chronic oversharer in real life, and I have to constantly check myself on the internet to not do the thing that I do in real life all the time.
The trick is to just lie a lot, like mix in a lot of lies into your like oversharing, so that people just never know. They never know what could be true. It just gives you an air of mystery that people
So,
like gravitate towards.
but how do you keep track of all the lies? That's the question.
Why would you need to keep track of them? You got to overwhelm them with the number of lies. That's their job. That's
I
their
guess
job
you're
to
right.
keep track of them.
I guess you're
That's
right.
the art of the deal. That's the art of the deal.
And remember, it's not a lie if you believe it.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's like Reagan
I wouldn't-
doing arms deals.
I mean, we really are in Trump's America here. Brandon's just like embracing post-truthism, postmodernism. Make your
I'm like
own
one
truth.
of those pigs. I'm like one of those pigs that live in Chernobyl. Like they've just learned to exist. They just learned to
You've
exist.
adopted. I saw something about that like there's like some bacteria that's developing there that's like resistant to radiation. I don't know. Bizarre. Let's do some clips. What should we get to here? Oh, this is easy. So Elon Musk was at that meeting yesterday, but
South African Elon Musk.
South
yes.
African billionaire Elon Musk was at the meeting with South African President Ramaphosa and Trump, where Trump tried to give him the Zelensky treatment and tried to badger him into admitting that there's a white genocide happening in South Africa. We just had an interview where we laid this out pretty clearly, but if you're just coming to this clip, I'll say that's not happening.
They're afraid of land reform.
You should listen to Benjamin Fogel and what he had to say about it, but it's less than 50 farm murders in a year over the course, and I think it's
in a
less
violent society,
less
too.
than 1% of the population that was killed in these murders, and half of those murders were also black people
And
on
it's-
farms.
Right, and it's inequality that's leading it to opportunistic violence, not a race war ideology to just kill white people or white farmers.
Right. So but largely Elon Musk has kind of receded from public life because, or at the very least political public life, because he was putting on the cheesehead in Wisconsin. He broke records for the amount of money that was spent in the judicial race in this country, and he got his ass whooped. And here's Harry Enton over on CNN, who always has these fun little segments. Can't help but enjoy these, explaining that dynamic and why Elon has become so toxic politically.
How low can you go?
And just a second.
Apologies. Here we go.
How low can you go? Oh my. Okay, take a look here. Elon Musk net favorability rating. Look at this shift. Back in 2017, before he really started this politics thing, he was at plus 24 points. Look at where he is now. Whoa, he fell through the floor. Minus 19 points. Among Democrats, the poll is even more dramatic. We're talking about going from plus 35 points on net favorability rating. That is quite a popular guy among Democrats. To get this, now down to minus 91 points. You can't really go lower than that. I guess you could go down to minus 100 points, but he became political kryptonite. He was...
Okay, so CNN has a big budget. I want them to send reporters out to find the 9% of Democrats who are still pro Elon Musk, because it's James Carville and like Fareed Zakaria.
It's embarrassed Tesla owners who don't want to admit it.
Yeah, right. Or just, yeah. That's got to be it. That's got to be it. But there's always those like 3% of voters who are like Democrats who support Trump or something, or think he's doing a good job.
Yeah.
Who think we have two moons.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can find a decent sized percentage of people who believe anything. That's like the dangers of a very public world we live in now.
Yeah.
Flat Earth and yeah.
Lower than that, I guess you could go down to minus 100 points, but he became political kryptonite. He was greatly disliked by the American public and greatly disliked by Democrats. And obviously we saw that in Wisconsin when, of course, he spent all that money and then the liberal won that Supreme Court race.
Yes. How has that plummet of popularity impacted the brand?
Yeah, exactly right. So this is Elon Musk individually. How about Tesla? Okay, let's take a look. The net favorability rating. Look, General Motors, we're going to...
By the way, you guys laugh at this, but this is what Tim Pool calls seventh generational warfare, is attacking this guy's car company.
General Motors and Tesla. General Motors quite...
Go ahead, Brandon.
No, I thought you were referring to seven generational warfare like this. That was like Elon Musk's strategy, and I was going to say like it's only 7 generational warfare on Elon Musk's part if like those generations have been interbreeding, because this is the worst business plan I've seen in my entire life.
Nobody was texting war plans.
Keep going.
About Tesla. Okay, let's take a look. The net favorability rating. Look, General Motors, we're going to compare General Motors and Tesla. General Motors, quite well liked by the American people, plus 23 points on net favorability rating. But look at Tesla, minus 20 points. So this idea that Tesla could somehow separate itself out from Elon Musk, the American people saw it the exact same way. And of course, Tesla is a business. They're in the business of selling cars. Awfully difficult to sell cars when you have a minus 20-point net favorability rating driven by Elon Musk's net favorability rating right around the same mark. And it's not a big surprise that Tesla sales had fallen in the past, at least in the first quarter, compared to where they were a year ago. It turns out that Elon Musk's political kryptonite was also becoming kryptonite for selling cars.
So, well, and one person maybe that matters to Elon Musk, maybe, well, other than his investors, would be Donald Trump. How has Trump's view of him shifted?
Yeah, so, we're talking about Tesla here, but of course he's leaving the political game. Okay, Trump loved talking about Elon Musk at the beginning of his administration. Trump posts about Musk on Truth Social. Look at this, from January 20th to April 4th. He posted about 40 times. Look, from April 5th onward, 0, 0, 0, 0, 0. Donald Trump knows brands very well. He knows political brands, and Elon Musk political brands time had run out, and therefore Elon Musk taking a step back from politics.
Trump's like, Elon, have you ever heard of this?
Condoms. Does everybody know what a condom is?
Not Elon.
Can we just get this this cut of Anton doing this acting out of Elon taking a step back? This is broadcasting.
And therefore Elon Musk taking a step back from politics.
Anton is great, and I do want to just...
I was going to say, of all the freaks at CNN, and there's a lot of freaks, Harry Anton is my favorite. He's an adorable freak.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, no, he has amazing theater kid energy, and I also feel like sometimes he has the exact same like intonations as Trump, and so you could imagine like almost Trump saying some of these things, like the hand gestures are very similar. But I did also just want to point out that April 4, April 5th discrepancy is very important, because April 1st was when that Supreme Court election happened in Wisconsin. And so gave him like 3 more days. I assume the last tweet was on, the last truth that was truthed out was on April 4th. And then he saw the writing on the wall, just stop talking about him. Just like, stop saying anything.
Right.
But isn't that odd? Because normally Donald Trump doesn't do quiet breakups. Usually it's going balls to the wall, screaming at whoever left his administration. When someone leaves on bad terms, you know it. And that's clearly
you know what?
because they're getting rich together. That's got to be the only explanation is that even if Elon's not publicly facing, they have some crypto scam that they're engaged in behind the scenes. It's got to be.
Yeah, I think that this is the most bizarre of the, the end of a Trump political relationship, if it even is fully happening. Because, as to be clear, as far as we know, Musk is just saying this stuff because he's still certainly active in talking about politics, and
Right.
he's certainly out there and engaging with this stuff. But based on the reporting, it seems like Trump, unlike when Trump dismisses other people, Trump doesn't seem to necessarily have had any fallout with Elon. It's Trump's cabinet that had the falling out. There's the reporting now that there was a big meeting that Trump called because he was tired of hearing Musk say one thing about people in his cabinet, and then his cabinet say one thing about Musk. So he just wanted them to hash it out. So he called this big meeting with all of them, and they all fought apparently and yelled at each other. And that's what made Musk sort of realize he was alone in this and step back. So this is an odd one. Trump usually is the one who has the beef. I don't think Trump has any beef with Musk yet, and that's probably why he's quiet quitting Musk, if he's even doing that. No, go ahead.
I was gonna say I would have loved to see that meeting. It would have been like an episode of The Apprentice, like the boardroom scenes.
Right. What I want everyone, and I don't think this is news to anyone watching this, but maybe it'll make them think about how they talk about this stuff for people who this does work on. You don't get to just enter politics in the way Musk did. Change up everything the way Musk did, whether we're talking about the campaign and the hundreds of millions he put into it, or his work with Doge and literally cutting people's livelihoods who've spent their lives to become park rangers or what have you, and now they've lost everything. You don't get to just step in, do all that, and go, oh, I've had enough because of the falling out and how it's bad for me. I want things to go back to how they were before I got involved. I'm stepping back. You don't get to do that here. And everyone here should make sure this follows Musk for his entire life. The protests at Tesla should not stop. These sorts of things have lasting effects, what Musk has done. So Musk should feel the lasting effects of causing it too. You don't get to just say, I'm out when you're getting involved in politics the way Musk did.
No, and he also was doing Sig Heils at the inauguration and trying to hand out money as bribery schemes to help Donald Trump get elected. He purchased Twitter because he was mad at journalists and media figures for accurately reporting on his actions or that of other conservatives. He destroyed the major journalistic communications platform and probably took a loss to do so. But the reporting is that he used his Tesla stock as collateral to purchase Twitter. And if this continues to go the way it's been going, then there may be margin calls if that stock price falls below a certain figure, because he may not have, if he were to liquidate, the money that he would need to back up that purchase. And this just came out earlier today that BYD, the electric vehicle maker in China that has started lapping Tesla in Europe, which is a huge, do we have this centered? Yeah. Which is really significant for for China trying to break into this market. BYD company sold more electric vehicles in Europe than Tesla for the first time, overtaking the American brand that's long led the continent's EV segment. China's
BYD makes
automaker
better cars than Tesla too. This isn't just like, obviously this is happening. This is spurred by the protests against Tesla, but also BYD makes if you've seen the videos of people who go to China and check out these BYD cars and make videos about them, they are a better vehicle. They are cheaper. They are better made. Technologically, they're more advanced. They have all the bells and whistles that even Tesla doesn't have, that you couldn't even dream of. So it's, I got nothing against China. Why should we we shouldn't be able to buy these products that are better than these American competitors just because our government has some beef with China? I don't care.
Well, because
it's not just Tesla. It is better than any car we make in America. And we have this racist belief that and complacency that China can't do things better than we can. Like, okay, they can make t-shirts very cheaply, or they can make shoes very cheaply, but we got the high-tech stuff cornered, so we're good. And so we can just trust South African billionaires like David Sachs or guys like Mark Andreessen or Elon Musk to steward innovation for us, and they fucked it up. They've blown it for the and you know, going back to like Zuckerberg and Bill Gates, all this shit. Like, what have we been doing?
But that's all been captured by capitalists too. It's not it's racism, as you say, again, but it's also a completely like religious belief in free market capitalism as the most efficient model, when we are now seeing in real time how actually centralized state planning is producing way better results than what we're doing right
exactly now. So Xi Jinping, like, you know, he had the folks from DeepSeek AI in, and he's like, you know, it's good, we want the private and public sector, but this has to be in the national interest. Now, look, I think from a Marxist thing, you'd want to say it needs to be in the interest of the international proletariat, right? But it's better to be in the national interest than in the interest of the most venal, greedy, psychopathically, like, money-grubbing people in the world, which is what the American system does.
Yep.
Well, I mean, I think to answer Matt Binder's question with perhaps like the obvious truth is that DEI is good when it's for white South Africans and subpar American goods. That's the underlying, like, you know, truth here. And to be fair, I think even Elon is honest about this. The value of Tesla is not tied up in the quality of the cars they make. It's tied up in the narrative surrounding Elon Musk as a businessman, as like the modern day Nikola Tesla and Tony Stark, and like the promises that he makes about the future capabilities of his car, which have not been fulfilled in the time frame that he laid out. And so a lot of it getting into politics was to, you know, stave off the inevitable bankruptcy of Tesla, the inevitable crashing of that stock, which would cause him personal financial difficulties as like the stock becomes like right-sized in terms of market cap. And, you know, I think he only ends up hastening that reality by getting involved in the Trump administration so visibly. Now he's learning why billionaire oligarchs tend to prefer to work behind the scenes, which just shows you how like not good of a businessman that he is, because he's made himself the face of the oligarchy in America. He's made himself the face of the things that before were amorphous and ethereal, and who knows who's like making these things like that. But like, no, now we all know it's like it's people like Elon, you know, and I think that's one of the reasons why Trump kind of still keeps him around, even if he doesn't talk about him on Truth Social, because he's a very useful scapegoat. Elon is a very useful scapegoat for the billionaire class to be like, no, we're different from this guy. He's a very useful scapegoat for Trump when it comes to like the negative decisions that he makes. Like some people even kind of blame Elon for the tariffs, which he has nothing really to do with. Like he just, because he's just so personally unlikable that it's easy to blame him for those sorts of things. And so like I think he has that value there too.
Yeah, when you talk about like Elon's promises and how that's kept Tesla afloat, it's basically been, it's made him the richest man in the world. First, the subsidies that governments have given him, and I would say that the Obama administration was a huge part of that.
$3 billion for Tesla.
There you go. And now it's the, like, we see again the inefficiencies of the way that companies that are just searching for investment operate in terms of allocating resources, because Elon was making those promises to get investors. Yeah. And he was lying about it. He was lying that the self-driving car was right around the corner. He was lying about the transportation initiatives that he was engaging in, the Hyperloop or whatever.
Yeah, the Hyperloop capabilities, that it wouldn't just be for Tesla cars, but that there'd be some sort of replacement for a subway.
Right. And so when you're just basically trying to attract investment, you are incentivized to overpromise. That's been the whole tech sector. That's the Theranos model.
That's the economy that we live in for the last 10, 20 years.
Yeah, and it's the economy that we have engendered, and Elon Musk is just the successful Elizabeth Holmes in that way. And so the Locked in the Lockbox writes in saying BYD is not the product of central planning at all. It's the product of a highly competitive EV market created by Chinese industrial policy, which I'm sorry to be a little bit confrontational about this, but you're contradicting yourself in the same sentence, is because the centralized planning was about creating the highly competitive market that you describe and incentivizing it. The Chinese did that within their own domestic context. If
And
we
there's
had done that,
protectionism there.
right, with the protectionism. But my point is that was a way more efficient model to plan that competition than to plan to give our already existing billionaires a bunch of subsidies without really any strings attached. And that's what we've created with Elon.
Well, I think just to piggyback off that point, just put a bow on it. Like we don't, because you mentioned this before, versus the the centralized economy in China. It's like we don't have a free market in the United States of America. There's never been a free market in the history of markets. There's always been a market that markets have always had government interference. When the government builds roads that allow people to trade more efficiently, that the market is no longer free, right? Just by nature of the infrastructure the government builds. And we don't even have that level of interference more. We just have a crony capitalistic system now, and so we don't even get the best products as the result of the mythology of a free market. We don't even have an option of that. We have a series of syndicates and conglomerates and like monopolies that have carved out sectors for themselves that are basically entirely impenetrable to like competitors, and it's going to get worse because of the tariffs that Trump implemented. So like the free market has always been a myth, but it's gotten less and less free under like the neoliberal politics of the joint Democratic and Republican Party duopoly.
Which is because it's capitalism, like in the late 20s to the 30s, is not actually capable of delivering the type of life and demands for society. And for this entire time that anybody on this call has been alive, we have been trusting these type of people. Let's just play this Elon Musk from 1990. We have been making sure these types of people have their taxes cut so they're able to, live playboy lifestyles, supposedly in the name of innovation. What do they make for it? A bunch of surveillance technology so they can sell our identities to advertisers. Instead, where China is, again, killing us in cars. By the way, they're doing high-speed rail too, so they're doing fucking both of that.
Yep.
Can we do one of those? They're doing both of that. In addition to like, oh, by the way, just one of our small hedge funds did AI almost as well as any of that. But instead, we've been making sure these people have all the money and all the say in where investment priorities go.
I expect to receive a car that I've just bought, which is called McLaren F1. There are 62 McLarens in the world, and I will own one of them.
It's $1 million for a car.
She's not around anymore.
Wow, I can't believe it's actually here. It's pretty wild, man. This is definitely very cool. I like it a lot.
Congratulations.
Just 3 years ago, I was showering at the Y and sleeping on the office floor. And now, obviously I've got a $1 million car and quite a few creature comforts. It's just a moment in my life. All clear. My values may change, but I'm not consciously aware of my values having changed.
My fear is that we become spoiled brats.
Well-founded.
You're not going to be there.
A sense of appreciation and perspective.
As he looks at his McLaren.
It's the perfect car for Silicon Valley. It really is.
Yeah,
There it is, gentlemen, the fastest car in the world.
And I would just contrast that with a piece by Alex Skopik in Current Affairs that I talked about with on Left Reckoning. China knows how to deal with its billionaires. And he's not the only one. According to Business Insider, China has 432 ex-billionaires whose wealth and power have waned since 2021, thanks to a combination of market downturns and Communist Party intervention. That's roughly a third of the billionaires the country has had at its peak. So not only is it doing cars better than us and high-speed rail better than us, it is, and also, not supporting the genocide in Palestine as much as we are, it is also making ex-billionaires and not really worried about its stock market as the main sort of issue in its economy. It's just building things, abundance, you might call it.
God, and he's been doing that shtick about where he sleeps and how he just doesn't care about money in any way since the 90s, I guess.
Never mind me unloading a McLaren, a one of 62 McLaren. I actually have a pretty meager existence where I sleep on a cot.
Right. He was like sleeping on the floor of some DC office building as he was cutting grandma's Social Security. And it's like, okay, yeah, the cot's a little easier to sleep on when you've when the K hits your system. But anyway, just in theory.
Well, he crashed that car anyway because he drives like shit. And that's what inspired the full self-driving mode. I think he crashed that car at some point.
Oh wait, that might be true actually.
All right, we're gonna fact check that, but I would not trust him to drive me around. I'll read some IMs. 6th generation warfighter. Hey, gang, I have a lighthearted question. What is your home address? Yeah.
Not funny.
Jerry at the beach. Maybe now that Elon is out of politics and maybe taking a step back from Tesla, he can finally focus on getting us to Mars. Tim Pool says, you guys are not having real conversations. I guess not.
She was offered a tour, sushi, and poker with the boys.
It does look like he crashed the McLaren trying to impress Peter Thiel.
No, I remember very specifically. They have like a whole page about it on like the McLaren Palm Beach website. Like just be like, hey, you remember that car we sold Elon or something? Like he crashed it, but it was his fault. Don't worry.
Yeah. Unlike his cars, our McLaren does not spontaneously combust or something.
Elon, when he crashed that McLaren, saw the inefficiencies existing in having to crash your own car. And so he decided to make the first car that crashes itself for you. And that just taking out the middleman. And this is the guy that you people, and by you people, I mean leftists, don't want in charge of the government. And I think you should just, look inward about why that is. Like, because it can't be about him.
It's because we are racist against white South Africans.
Yeah, we're pro-genocide.
It's true.
And we want them all to kill themselves in McLarens. Here is it looks like an explainer on this.
Oh, good.
Do you know about Elon Musk and his car crash? In 2000, fresh off his success with Zip2, Musk acquired a McLaren F1, a car that embodied exclusivity and speed, a symbol of his meteoric rise. 3 years ago, I was showering at the YMCA. Now I have $1 million car, he said. But Musk's fearless spirit led to a moment of recklessness. A daring maneuver turned disastrous. While showing off his new car to PayPal co-founder Peter Thiel, McLaren spun out of control, flew like a discus 3 feet into the air and crashed. The worst part? The car wasn't insured. A humbling reminder that even visionaries face setbacks. Despite the
hold on. Visionary
Musk's journey continues,
setback.
fueled by innovation.
That's the real shame, is that we could have got two birds.
So funny. It wasn't even insured. Can you not insure cars like that because they're so expensive and like hard to maintain?
Yeah, what's the point? Right.
But
makes
I would
bad
say
decisions.
very not facing a setback is not how you describe someone who didn't get insurance for their very expensive car. It's quite the opposite of how I would.
It's almost a debilitating setback for most people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Krusty Gnome. I heard another report that crosses weren't even in South Africa. I saw it with the Congo or something like that. Yes.
I think it was specifically Afrikaners, but maybe
really?
I'm wrong about that.
No, so the crosses were in South Africa, but they weren't a mass grave because obviously they were.
Yeah.
It was like a memorial for 2 South African farmers who had died, and their neighbor put on his private land a bunch of crosses to like commemorate them. Whether or not they were killed by Black people, I am not able to say, but certainly that would still not give credence to the idea of like a white genocide.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Cole from Little Rock. The world's most well-fed refugees juxtaposed against children starving in Gaza. I'm livid at our nation. Today more than usual. I'm also going into a weekend where I'll be around right-wing elements of both sides of my family against a backdrop of Memorial Day. This may go south in a hurry. Well, if you can find a way to distract yourself, there are chemical and non-chemical methods to do that. Godspeed. I'm sorry, Cole. All right. Political fights with the family, it's tough, but just disassociate. That's what I do.
Did you all watch the interview with the Afrikaner refugee who came to the US with the BBC about his anti-Semitic tweets? You should definitely watch that if you have it in your free time.
That. Yeah,
I can put it in the chat, but
all right, cool.
It's really good.
We'll look at it. Just another guy says, I heard one of the reasons Elon sold X to XAI was so he could use the venture capital money raised by XAI to pay off his debts for buying Twitter.
Yes,
right.
That's exactly why. That is the 100% reason why. It's not even like one of the reasons, or I heard that is 100% the factual reason why he did that.
I still do TWI to prompt Twitter to come up in my browser. I will never put X in.
No.
Yeah. There's an AI hype bubble that has basically just saved Elon Musk. He jumped into it using as a facade his concerns over ethical AI. And he was able to get people to give him lots of money to basically save his ass.
NYC driver Robbie Roadsteamer did a great serenade of a local Tesla dealer. It was pretty empty, though. What the F does it take says, with tongue firmly in cheek, I say, how come you're not doing wall-to-wall coverage of the shooting killing in D.C. last night, like I continue to see on MSNBC, and I'm sure on CNN and FNC, Fox News Channel. You know, it's tricky because it's horrible that those folks were killed. I mean, there's nothing that I can say that defends that. I think that any further conflation of anti-Zionism with anti-Semitism is unfortunately contributing to that kind of environment.
Including by progressive people who are running for Congress and panicking and calling the attack anti-Semitism. Bernie Sanders had it right when he just said it's violence and it shouldn't be tolerated. But to call it anti-Semitism is a huge fucking problem, and people need to get on the right page on some of this stuff.
Right. Even people who think that there are reasons for violence at times. This clearly isn't that issue. Like, if you want to compare it to something that like contrast it, I should say, to something like, for example, Luigi Mangione allegedly knew who was in charge at the United Healthcare company, and that's who he took his anger out on, allegedly. In this case, these were just two random people. They have no power over the situation. It doesn't matter what you think of them. They are completely bystanders who have no power to do anything, whether it is to continue in Gaza or to stop in Gaza. They are just powerless. So even doing what this guy did and looking at it that way is just the guy was wrong, and it should be called out, obviously, fully, because it's just stupid.
Well said. Well said.
The other thing I would just say is that violence and the two Palestinian students in Vermont that were shot, and the young Palestinian boy in Illinois killed by his landlord. All of those acts of violence were taking place in an environment created by the genocide being perpetrated by Israel and supported by our government. That needs to change, or these types of violence are going to continue. We also, in addition to South Africa, a very violent country. The president of the United States almost got his head blown off last summer. In order to stop this, we need to take down the heat, and that's not going to happen when images of starving children are continuing to pour over the airwaves, and those images should continue as long as kids are being starved intentionally. And the other thing is absolutely no to people like the ADL who are going to use this, and already have hit CNN's airwaves to attack people like Hasan or the anti-Israel protests in general. Absolutely no to any of that. And those are the political imperatives. Stop the genocide, and absolutely no to supporters of Israel who want to use this tragedy as a pretext to further attack freedoms that we have in this country, or should have in this country.
Well, since we're on the topic, Russ, thanks for finding this here. This is Jonathan Greenblatt, who went on CNN and went after Hasan Piker, who, by the way, was just detained for his speech coming back into the country. This is absolutely despicable.
It's fascist.
But all of us need to call it out. I'm thinking about the New York Times doing a gauzy profile a few weeks ago of this gamer, Hasan Piker, who regularly employs awful genocidal rhetoric against Jewish people in the Jewish state.
That's a heinous smear. That's defamation.
I would sue over that if I was Hasan.
That's fucking.
That is 100% slanderous.
Go for it. He should. He's got money. He should sue him. Honestly,
wonderful.
That is beyond what I was expecting. I had not seen that clip.
Well, they've shown. Sorry, Bender. I got heated. Go on.
No, that is a direct accusation of a very specific thing that Hasan has not done. And if I was Hasan, I would look into my legal rights here and go after this guy and the organization he's speaking for. Honestly.
The ADL has shown that they can be cowed by money. They accused rightly Elon Musk of anti-Semitism when he endorsed the Great Replacement theory on social media. Then it's just like a little weird. Suddenly, they were really pro Elon Musk.
Maybe less money and more just, oh, you're going to work with us because we're a fascist government doing fascism, and you have the ear of the Americans.
I mean, I think that it could be a coincidence, but also Starlink started to work with the Israeli government, and then what do you know? A year later, they're turning the other cheek when Elon Musk is endorsing the far-right German party that says that we should leave the Holocaust in the past and quit remembering, and then doing Nazi salutes at the inauguration, repeated, as AOC said at the time, for emphasis and clarity. They've shown that they can look the other way on that, but
Could we rewind a little bit just so I could fully hear exactly what he accused Hasan of doing? Because if he had claimed Hasan was sharing anti-Semitic rhetoric, that'd be a little bit harder to go after, because you could claim a lot of things are anti-Semitic. That's sort of in the eye of the beholder, right? But we have made clear. We have made it very clear over this past year, especially from people like him and the ADL, that accusing someone of genocide is a very specific framework. And for you to then declare that someone is using genocidal rhetoric against a specific group of people, that is slander. And without a doubt, Hasan should go after them if that's indeed what he said, and I'm pretty sure he did.
Let's hear it.
But all of us need to call it out. I'm thinking about the New York Times doing a gauzy profile a few weeks ago of this gamer, Hasan Piker, who regularly employs awful genocidal rhetoric against Jewish people in the Jewish state. Like, extremists should not be empowered. People who spout prejudice should not be platformed. This is a moment when we need to look ourselves in the mirror and say, we've got to stop this because the consequences are deadly. But all of us need to call.
But I mean, do you see how he conflates like Jewish people broadly with a Jewish state, like the ethno-nationalist state of Israel? And to be fair, like he's doing just like we were talking about with the South Africans, right? He's trying to make their inability to hold control over a state, a piece of land, as an ethno-nationalist state. Because we know that a lot of people in Israel who are Zionists think that the one state solution, the state where they have equal representation for Palestinians, equal representation for Israel, is the genocide they're referring to. They're not referring to the total eradication of Israelis, Jewish Israelis by Arabs. They're referring to a changing of the structure that prevents there from being an ethno-nationalist state, an apartheid state, which provides special rights for Israelis and that creates a permanent underclass of Palestinians. And unlike in the situation with the white South Africans, they are able to more readily reference and index an actual genocide that happened to Jewish people and cloak themselves in the veil of people who, are unfamiliar probably with the current situation, broadly speaking, unfamiliar probably with the history of the Holocaust and how Western powers beyond Germany facilitated and encouraged and inspired it. And they're probably also likely, especially for the liberals that this is aimed at, unfamiliar with what systemic and structural oppression and such, and offshoots like genocide are actually like. And so it's very easy for them to be cowed by stuff like this. But when you see Israeli people talk about like the genocide being aimed at them by Palestinians, you should treat it with the same kind of skepticism that you treat the white South Afrikaners who are saying the same thing about the genocide being aimed at them by like the black people that they're surrounded by. They're not talking about the total eradication of their people. They're talking about a shift in cultural norms that would prevent them from having like a hierarchy where that is racialized or ethnicized in the case of Jewish people, and that they're the top of inherently. That's not the same thing as what the Palestinians are going through, and it's certainly not the same thing as what genocide is.
It's a white supremacist conflation. It's the Great Replacement theory, but applied to a variety of different contexts where the eradication of a people is conflated with racial integration. When folks like Hasan or us, we talk about from the river to the sea, and we talk about one democratic state, we mean no, not killing of Israelis, not killing of Jews, not killing of Palestinians, one democratic state where people live side by side. And the idea that smear merchants like this guy are conflating basically the end of an apartheid system and the end of a genocide, and racial and ethnic integration into a land where that can be shared and should be shared with genocide is just white supremacist talking points. It's the same thing as when you hear the Great Replacement Theory stuff. And it's no wonder that Greenblatt was okay with the endorsement of that anti-Semitic conspiracy theory by someone like Elon Musk, because at the end of the day, it's kind of the version that Israel deploys to continue justifying its genocide.
Same demographic anxiety.
Yeah.
To take what Emma just said, I want to take it even a step further. The audacity of people like Greenblatt to treat for these past nearly 2 years the word genocide and accusations of genocide as some sort of like a super high standard, like the holy grail of if you dare say that, you better back it up. And here he is throwing it around to go after, and this is no offense to Hasan, but to make my point here, just a live streamer who's never taken a single life. You know, the idea that you would just claim what he just said about Hasan, to take it a step further, what Emma just said, what Greenblatt just did here is no different than Donald Trump and Elon Musk out there claiming there's a white genocide in South Africa. It's the same bullshit.
Right. But is this genocidal? This is a Republican congressman here. What his suggestion is after this horrible shooting in D.C.
The fact of the matter is the Palestinian cause is an evil one.
Yeah, and Congressman, there is a ceasefire deal on the table now that the White House is hoping both Israel and Hamas will sign on to. Does this shooting change anything when it comes to the course of the war or the negotiations to end it?
Well, I think it speaks to the importance of the only end of the conflict is complete and total surrender by those who support Muslim terror. In World War II, we did not negotiate a surrender with the Nazis. We did not negotiate a surrender with the Japanese. We nuked the Japanese twice.
We did.
Unconditional surrender. That needs to be the same here. There is something deeply, deeply wrong with this culture, and it needs to be defeated.
We heard in Brooks.
So if you heard that correctly, that's him suggesting the nuking of Gaza. We did just have an interview speaking to David Hurst of Middle East Eye, who wrote in his piece about how over the course of 8 years, the United States dropped 5 million tons of bombs on Vietnam. Gaza is 141-ish square miles. Israel's now dropped 100,000 tons of bombs on Gaza. So that's like in terms of just what we're talking, like that's a whole country of Vietnam. We're historic levels of slaughter here. And we should say that if this was reversed, right? If say to use that old clip from Michael where he said if the situation was reversed and a group of Palestinians was concentrating Jews into this small territory and bombing the hell out of them, we would have the exact same reaction. He's basically implicating Hasan in this hate crime, one, because of his popularity, but I would also suspect because of his last name, because of his first name. Like, there's real anti-Islamophobic racism here that would never be tolerated if a Jewish person with that last name was being implicated in a hate crime committed by somebody else.
Look at the
because it's racist. It's wrong.
Look at the reaction that our media had to the young Palestinian boy being murdered by the landlord, or the 2 Vermonters shot. And we're going to have barely even mentioned. But the media will talk about this because the media can do something with this that it wants to do, which is to come for your freedoms, just like they did after 9/11.
Exactly.
Also, they don't even talk about that shooting that happened in Florida a few weeks ago, where the pro-Israeli guy shot up a car with other Israelis in it because he thought that they were Arabs. That was another shooting that happened a while ago, and that people have forgotten, although there was a bit of a humor after it. And I would just say to your point, Emma, I actually disagree a little bit. I think that the things that make Islamophobia popular and okay have a lot to do with the material circumstances in the Middle East and the demographics there. And I only emphasize that because I think people get in their head the wrong idea that there is a type of person besides incredibly wealthy and well-connected that you can be that if you were to stand against the American empire and its aims, that we would just like be forced to fold. The American people would just be forced to fold and go like, oh, well, we just value that population inherently based on their identity too much. I think we would just craft different propaganda. I think ultimately, like, the issues in the Middle East are related to like the resources that we have there. And yes, there is a very strong undercurrent of Islamophobia, but that is inextricable from our material aims in the Middle East and our aims in the Middle East. Because we have no problem engaging in business dealings with countries or heads of country that are Islamophobic. We have no problem engaging with them if they're anti-Semitic, if they're religious zealots, if they're theocrats, if they're warlords. I think that a lot of Americans imagine that there is a, what if I'm like a white person, I could be, given carte blanche. That's just the circumstances right now. And they're trying to change those circumstances to make it easier and easier to like put people in jail, to exile them, do all those sorts of things.
Yeah, and I think the Islamophobia, like, you look back at like our relations with Muslim countries 50 years ago, it was better than it is now, and that's because the Zionist project has continued this far along, and it's just making it worse.
Read Avi Shlaim. Read about the history of him being a Jewish person who is from the Middle East and what Zionism did to his relationships with his neighbors.
Yeah, great essay by Overzealots on YouTube on that. People can check out.
All right, guys, gonna read some IMs and then I got to jump. Naughty Queen says, you guys are using Islamic and Arabic interchangeably, and while there is overlap, it's not the same as Islam as a religion, and not all Muslims are Arabic. Absolutely.
That's true. But we also have to understand that in our popular culture, and I don't think we shouldn't like make that distinction, we do racialize those things together. That's why when we talk about who is under attack in Gaza, there's a specific emphasis on Arabs and a specific emphasis on Muslims, because they don't want you to be able to identify with the fact that there is a diverse population in the Middle East, because that's part of the propaganda we've weaponized against them in our asymmetrical warfare, that the Middle East is a homogenized area full of Arab Muslim men between the ages of 16 to 45 who are legitimate bombing targets, and there are no Christians, there are no women, there are no children, there are no Sikhs, there are no Persians, there are no anything. And so we definitely have to always be on the guard for that kind of thing, but that is just the parlance, and that's part of the weapon that they use against people.
Yeah.
All right. There are white Muslims, there are Arab Christians, but I honestly do think that like the whitest Muslim is probably receiving the same sort of xenophobic hatred just for the fact of they are wearing Muslim, if they are wearing it, traditional Muslim garb, they will receive that same hatred, because here our racists have been taught that there is no difference. There's no such thing. If you are wearing that, or you are a certain skin color, or both, you are the other that we hate. It doesn't matter. As long as you are one or both, they'll come after you.
And I do think Christians should be encouraged, if you're looking for a sort of persuasive edge, is to say, well, look at what Israel's doing to Bethlehem. You think that's the type of conditions it should be kept in?
I mean, I think Pope Francis, and it seems like Pope Leo is going to continue that. I think them speaking out for Gaza has been immensely a big deal. I think it's been immensely helpful in terms of people seeing that this isn't just, it's unfortunate they need that, but I do believe that there are at least Catholics who see that and have cared more about Gaza because the Pope has spoke out about it.
Yep.
Dan from Columbus, there's a type of car insurance for wealthy people with expensive cars that you turn off and on anytime you drive, at least according to my coworker a couple of years ago. Elon probably forgot to call beforehand.
Never heard of that before.
Yeah, me neither. Dust collectors can't believe it's been like 20 years since I threw a banana peel out my window in Palm Springs and made Elon Musk crash his McLaren. B. Dan from San Diego. Peter Thiel watching Elon crash. Elon, are you okay?
Talk about like that, and when Nigel Farage had the helicopter crash, it's like,
yeah,
man, so close.
Mecha Tanky never asked the Zionists why they didn't save their hostages with a peace deal. Never ask a Ukrainian why their military is covered in swastikas. Okay.
I'll also say just generally, it's bad for organizations that purport to be nominally Jewish to be denying genocide and supporting universities withholding diplomas from students who speak out against what's going on in Gaza. I would say just broadly, don't do that in the name of Jews.
Yeah. Dark Soul, meanwhile, a larger streamer than Hasan called Palestinians culturally inferior and uses actual genocidal language, but conveniently no cries about that. Never again, but only for us.
It is. That is a great point. Asmongold is literally. There is data that now shows this. He is literally, after Mr. Beast, the largest streamer on YouTube. After Mr. Beast, the most searched YouTuber is Asmongold, and this guy was out there saying what he was saying about Palestinians and Palestinian culture, and nothing. No coverage. Nobody cared except for activists and political leftists online. Otherwise, no coverage. He doesn't get coverage at all, period. It's amazing how this guy manages to say what he says and is under the radar as someone who's bigger than every Ben Shapiro, Andrew Tate, bigger than all these guys. Nothing.
Yeah, and if you want to know who's listening to him, it's every cop.
Yeah. All right, 3 more and then I gotta jump. Escalatory tactics. So wait, Tucker Carlson's narrative is responsible when any white nutjob raises kills innocent immigrants, but Hasan is not when someone kills innocent Israeli embassy workers. Well, that's because Tucker Carlson has hateful rhetoric and Hasan does not.
Yeah. It's simple.
Yeah.
What's the rhetoric? What's the rhetoric that Hasan is guilty of? That is like Tucker Carlson saying Jews are or implying, maybe not explicitly saying Jews, but someone is invading America with brown people to dilute the vote.
Yeah.
That's Hasan said remotely like that. I hope that was sarcastic.
I mean, Tucker Carlson called Iraqis monkeys. Has Hasan ever said anything equivalent to that? It's ridiculous. Stars Pawn, please get a shofar for my sweet cat Nova. Today is her 6th birthday. Despite the horrors of reality, she brings us such joy. Absolutely. And the final I am of the day.
So John C. Calhoun's responsible for lynching, but Lincoln's not responsible for.
Yeah. Sam's 3-inch stack says Sam will be getting a strongly worded letter about this no collar business. Also, congrats, Binder.
Thank you.
Fair enough. All right. See you guys. Thank you so much, Binder. Congrats to Binder. Brandon, Matt, Russ. See you tomorrow. Bye bye.